Bedtime Stories for Kids. Alice in Wonderland. It was a golden afternoon, and the sky was soft and cloudless. A gentle breeze ruffled the grass. Alice sat beside her sister under a large tree, trying very hard to stay awake while her sister read aloud from a book with no pictures and no conversations. "What's the point of a book without pictures or talking?" Alice murmured, sighing. She lay back and watched a butterfly flit by lazily. Just as her eyes began to close, a white rabbit with pink eyes darted past. Nothing unusual, except he was wearing a waistcoat, checking a pocket watch, and muttering anxiously, oh dear, I shall be too late." Alice sat bolt upright, a talking rabbit, with a watch. Without thinking, she sprang to her feet and chased after him across the grass. The rabbit darted into a hole beneath a hedge. Alice didn't hesitate. "If he can talk, surely he can explain," she said, and dove in after him. The world spun. She fell through a deep, twisting tunnel, shelves lined with books, jars of orange marmalade, upside-down chairs, floating clocks. Her hair rose around her like a cloud. "Either this is a very long rabbit hole," she thought aloud, "or I'm falling very slowly." Eventually, she landed with a soft thump in a hallway unlike any she'd ever seen. The walls shimmered with gold light. Tiny lamps floated in the air. At the far end, the rabbit zipped around a corner. "Wait," Alice called, but he was gone. She turned to find herself in a corridor lined with locked doors. She tried each handle, all locked. Then she saw a small glass table, and upon it, a tiny golden key and a bottle marked "Drink Me." Alice picked up the bottle. "This doesn't look like poison, and I am terribly curious." She took a sip. Within seconds, the walls grew taller. The doors loomed like mountains. She looked down. "Oh, I'm shrinking." She was now no taller than a teacup. The key still sat on the table, far above her reach. She stamped her foot. How very frustrating. Then she saw a small glass box beneath the table. Inside it was a cake with the label, "Eat Me." Alice giggled. "Well, if the drink made me smaller, maybe this will make me grow." She took a bite. And grow she did, up, up, up. Her head brushed the ceiling. She was now too large for the key, or the door. Tears welled up in her eyes. "Oh no, now I'll never get through." The room flooded with her tears. Just then, the rabbit rushed past again, dropping a pair of gloves and a fan. Oh dear, oh dear. He vanished through a tiny door she couldn't reach. Alice picked up the fan and waved it, and to her shock, she began shrinking again, smaller and smaller, until she floated in her own sea of tears. "What is happening today?" she cried. She bobbed along in the salty waves, drifting past floating bottles, paper boats, and curious creatures. Her adventure had only just begun. Alice drifted through her own pool of tears like a tiny boat lost at sea. Around her, strange creatures swam by, a duck in a bonnet, a lizard in a waistcoat, and a mouse paddling with its tail. "Excuse me," Alice called to the mouse. "Do you know the way out of here?" The mouse sniffed. "I might, but I don't like cats." "Oh, but I have a cat," Alice exclaimed. "Her name is Dinah." At that, the mouse shrieked and dove underwater. "Oops," Alice whispered. That was terribly impolite. Eventually, the waves from her tears carried her to shore, where a large group of wet and disgruntled animals had gathered, including a dodo with a very serious expression. "We must get dry," the dodo announced. "How?" asked a young bird. "With a caucus race, of course." No one knew what that was, but the dodo began running in wide circles, and everyone followed. There was no start or end, and after several laps, the dodo suddenly declared, "Everyone has one, and all must have prizes." Alice dug in her pocket and handed out sweets, feeling oddly like she had attended a very strange birthday party. But the moment passed quickly, and Alice found herself alone again, wandering through winding paths and twisting trees. Then, sitting atop a mushroom, she saw a blue caterpillar. He puffed on a hookah and stared at her with sleepy eyes. "Who are you?" he asked, exhaling smoke rings. I'm not sure anymore," said Alice honestly. "I've changed so much today." "Explain yourself." "Well, it's very confusing. Sometimes I'm small, sometimes I'm tall. I cry for no reason, and float in my own tears. It's all quite, how can I say it, curiouser and curiouser." The caterpillar smirked. He took a long puff and blew a perfect question mark into the air. "Eat one side of the mushroom, you'll grow. The other side, you'll shrink. Which side is which?" But the caterpillar was already slithering away. Alice plucked a piece from the mushroom and nibbled. Her neck stretched like a snake, high into the treetops. Birds screamed and flew away. She quickly tried the other side and shrank back to a more manageable size. "That's better," she said, "though I still don't know where I'm going." Ahead, she saw a house with a tall chimney and clouds of peppery smoke wafting out. Inside lived a duchess, a grumpy cook, and a crying baby. More pepper. The cook shouted, flinging handfuls into every pot. The duchess bounced the baby on her knee, completely unbothered. "Everyone minds their own business here," she muttered. "And that's why the world goes round." Alice tried to comfort the baby, but it sneezed so hard it turned into a pig. "Perhaps it's happier this way," Alice said gently, setting it down and watching it trot off. As she stepped back into the woods, a grin appeared in the air above her. Then came the eyes, then the ears. Until finally, the Cheshire Cat materialized, lounging on a tree branch. "Where are you headed?" he purred. "I don't much care, as long as I find somewhere. Then you're sure to get there if you walk long enough." He grinned wider. "Try the Mad Hatter and March Hare. But be warned, they're mad. But I suppose everyone is here." Alice sighed. "Oh yes," said the cat, fading slowly. "We're all mad here." And with that, only his smile remained, hovering in the air, like a secret. Alice followed the twisting path, toward a tea party she would never forget. Alice followed the winding forest path, still puzzled by the cat's cryptic grin and the world that seemed to make less sense with every step. Soon she came upon a clearing with a long table set under a tree. Teacups were stacked in towers. Plates held half-eaten scones, and seated at one end were the Mad Hatter, the March Hare, and a very sleepy dormouse. They wore large hats and spoke in overlapping riddles. "No room, no room," cried the hare as Alice approached. "But there's plenty of room," Alice said, taking a chair. "Would you like some wine?" asked the hatter. Alice looked around. "I see only tea." "Then that's your answer," he grinned. "You should say what you mean," Alice huffed. "I do," the hatter replied. "At least I mean what I say. That's the same thing." The conversation grew curiouser and curiouser. They discussed time, which the hatter had quarreled with, and now was stuck forever at tea o'clock. They recited poems about turtles who taught dance, and asked riddles with no answers. The dormouse occasionally woke to mumble strange stories about treacle wells before dozing off in his teacup again. Eventually, Alice had enough. "This is the silliest tea party I've ever been to." "Then you must be getting close to the palace," said the hare, pouring tea into his hat. Alice wandered further until she came upon a garden gate. Inside, she found 3 playing cards, the 2, 5, and 7 of spades, painting white roses red. "Why are you painting them?" Alice asked. "We planted the wrong color." The 5 whispered. "The queen wants red, or it's off with our heads." Before Alice could reply, a trumpet blared. The queen is coming." A royal procession marched into the garden, soldiers shaped like cards, a white rabbit in a trumpet vest, and at the center, the Queen of Hearts herself, red-faced and ready to shout. "Who is this?" the queen demanded, pointing her scepter at Alice. "I'm Alice," she said politely. "Off with her." "She's only a child," interrupted the King of Hearts, a small, quiet man beside the queen. "Fine," barked the queen. "But she must play croquet." The croquet field was chaos. Flamingos were used as mallets, hedgehogs for balls, and the arches kept moving because they were made of live card soldiers. "This is absurd," Alice muttered. "Isn't it delightful?" The queen shouted, swinging her flamingo. "Off with someone's head." The game was so disorganized, no one seemed to know who was winning. But every few minutes, someone was sentenced to be beheaded, though curiously, no heads ever rolled. Then a new cry rose from the palace. The Knave of Hearts has stolen the tarts. The queen turned crimson. To the courtroom. The entire garden rushed into the palace for the trial. Alice followed, heart-pounding, having no idea what madness lay ahead. The courtroom was packed, rows of playing cards sitting stiffly in the jury box, animals perched on benches, and the Queen and King of Hearts sitting on thrones made of velvet and gold. The Knave of Hearts stood in chains, trembling. "He stole the Queen's tarts," the White Rabbit announced. "Did not?" the Knave squeaked. The Queen pounded her gavel. "Off with his head." "But we haven't had the trial yet," the King whispered. "Fine," the Queen snapped. "Then let's begin." Alice sat near the back, watching as nonsense unfolded before her eyes. Witnesses gave testimony that made no sense. A cook claimed she only used pepper in sneezes. The Mad Hatter mumbled about tea time. The Dormouse fell asleep mid-sentence. Finally, the Queen pointed at Alice. "You there, what do you know about the tarts?" "Nothing," Alice said. "Then you must be the thief." "That's ridiculous." Alice stood. "You're all talking nonsense." The courtroom gasped. The Queen stood. "Off with," Alice shouted. "Oh, be quiet." And her voice growing bolder. "You're nothing but a pack of cards." At that moment, the Queen lunged. The cards flew into the air like a storm, and Alice woke up. She was lying in the grass, her head in her sister's lap, birds chirping in the trees above. "You were dreaming," her sister said gently. Alice blinked at the sky, dazed. It was the most curious dream. She tried to explain the rabbit, the tea party, the cards, the Queen, but it all sounded so impossible. "Well," her sister smiled, brushing Alice's hair, "perhaps some dreams are meant to stay curious." Alice sat up, stretching, but even as the real world settled around her again, a part of her still listened for laughter in teacups, still looked twice at rabbits with waistcoats, and still believed that Wonderland might return again when one is least expecting it.